So as you can see, the stream is about restore the Snyderverse and why it's a very real thing. And if you look at the stream, you'll see Henry Cavill there. Let me explain to you what comes by bringing back Man of Steel, BVS, Ultimate Edition, Zack Snyder's Justice League, putting those back in cinemas. Let me explain to you the things that a lot of people are missing out. Some of the key players in these movies are Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill doesn't just have DC fans. Let's look at what the AI overview says. Henry Cavill has a large and diverse fan base across social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, with many fans forming communities dedicated to celebrating his career, specific roles like Superman, and interests such as Warhammer. Fans create unofficial fan pages, share fan art and photos, engage in discussions about his work. Cavill himself acknowledges and appreciates his fans, viewing them as friends and appreciating their passion for the source material, as shown as the defense of toxic fandom and his gratitude for their support. So, we have fan art and photos, and I can tell you there's a lot of fans for Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, and also Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck has a tremendous fan base. They all see him as Batman. There's a dedicated fan base for Ben Affleck's portrayal of Batman, who appreciates his Batfleck persona, with fans even celebrating him with hashtags like Thanks Batfleck. However, there's also initial fan resistance to his casting, with some skeptics doubting his physicality for the role. Today, online groups, discussions on platforms like Facebook and Reddit exist to discuss and express admiration for his performance. Okay, so what I'm basically saying here is what we basically just read is that there is a fan base, a fandom for Ben Affleck, and there's a fandom, for Henry Cavill. All right. So Henry Cavill starred in several different prominent films. He's been in The Witcher as the main character in The Witcher. He's known for that. He's also known as Superman. He's also known as the CIA agent in Mission Impossible. And just last year, he was in the big hit. He cameoed in the hit Deadpool and Wolverine. So Henry Cavill's a big name out there, and he has a tremendous fan base. And I know this because in my Man of Steel group, people keep on posting up stuff about Henry Cavill. They even have him, they try to get him in Wonder Woman group as well. I don't know why, but there's a lot of fans of Henry Cavill on Facebook. They have groups dedicated to him. That's how much they like him. So what am I saying? I'm saying those people, those fans of Ben Affleck, they're also fans of Ben Affleck, period. Whatever movie comes to, the fans go to see it. Henry Cavill's been very successful. He's been in many major successful movies now. Been in Mission Impossible. He's been in Deadpool and the Wolverine. He's also been Superman in Batman v Superman. These are high-grossing films. Two of the films I just mentioned, over $1 billion. The other one's close to $1 billion. So Henry Cavill starred in some major motion pictures. And they say, well, Henry Cavill can't be a lead man. Yes, he can be a lead man. Of course he can. They're looking forward to Henry Cavill's Warhammer. I think he's supposed to also be in Voltron. Age of Voltron is supposed to come out, and Henry Cavill will be also starring in that. So Henry Cavill's in several different films and movies, and lots of people love Henry Cavill. They also loved Henry Cavill as Superman. And you put out anything with Henry Cavill in it, these people are going to go see it. So if you say, okay, we're going to do the Snyderverse trilogy in cinemas for a limited release time, but we're going to put it out there, and Henry Cavill's going to be in it. All you got to say, you don't have to say too much more than that. And a whole bunch of people are going to go see Henry Cavill in Man of Steel. And they already know his performance was good in Man of Steel. Now, To the people who say that Henry Cavill, that was a darker depiction of Superman in Man of Steel or in BVS or in Zack Snyder's Justice League, I say to them, no. Henry Cavill played Superman just like how Christopher Reeve played Superman. He played Superman just like that. He was the same Superman. The difference was that he was in a different world. And the world he was in is our world. Now, our world, depending on how you see our world, can be seen as dark or it can be seen as light. For example, when you go about your daily business every day, you go to work or you go to school or whatever you do, the world that you're going in and you interface and interact with people, is it dark? No. You would call it normal, right? However, there are some very horrific things happening in the world today, generally speaking, that are very dark. But the world itself, the world we live in right now, is not really dark, right? If it was dark, then you would be oppressed. You wouldn't even have the luxuries of being able to go to cinema, and people around you would be depressed. So it's not a dark world. So the world that Superman was put in wasn't a dark world either. However, once he revealed himself to the world, some people loved him, and some people were afraid of him, and some people were affected negatively by him when he showed up and he started fighting to try and save everybody. Some people were negatively affected, some people were positively affected, and that affected how they viewed him. So that's the world. He was controversial. He was a controversial figure. At first, the world was accepting of him, and then he became controversial. Right. And this is typical of our world. Now, does that make it gritty and dark? No. Does that mean that the version of Superman that Zack Snyder and David Goyer presented to us is dark? No. Okay? Superman. He's not different. What Christopher Reeve Superman would have done, this Superman would have done. He's Superman. The thing is, of course, growing up, it wasn't easy for him to breathe. And there were times when, he was going through puberty and getting his powers, and it was a frightful experience. So, and he didn't know how to focus in on things. But that, again, is developmental. That doesn't make it dark. You understand? Did he have a horrible childhood? Absolutely not. Were certain incidents where he showed his powers, did it intimidate other children and he was bullied? Yes. But if you look at the Christopher Reeves version, he was also bullied, right? So this wasn't a darker take on Superman. And Henry Cavill's not a dark Superman. And Henry Cavill's not a dark person, right? And I just make this point that if you're talking about Henry Cavill's version in The Witcher, yes, he's dark in The Witcher. That's a dark story, right? He's dark in The Witcher. No if, buts, or maybes about that, right? But in Superman, in Man of Steel, BVS, and even Zack Snyder's Justice League, Henry Cavill's portrayal of Superman is not dark. Does he lose hope at a certain point? Yes. But does he gain it back? Yes. That doesn't mean he's dark, though. And so when people talk about, this Superman is like, what they call it? Injustice Superman. No, he's not Injustice Superman. Now, if you wanted to say when he gets the anti-life starts to control him, he becomes like Injustice Superman, kind of. It's not the same story, but kind of like, yeah, he's Injustice Superman then. But as he is right now, no, he's not. However, the thing that separates this Superman that Zack Snyder is doing from the Superman that Christopher Reeve had, and the version that Christopher Reeve had, and Richard Donner wanted to develop that Superman further. He wanted to develop that Superman, but he never got the opportunity, is that this Superman, which Zack Snyder has, is evolving, right? He's growing, he's evolving, So that's the difference. And the world is growing and evolving to learn how to accept him. So I like that about Zack Snyder's Superman. That's the strong point of Zack Snyder's Superman. And I like that, we go from the very beginning, from his origins, all the way down to his end. So I'm loving what Zack Snyder is doing. And that's why we need to have the Snyderverse restored. And we need to see that story continue, because you can't just stop a story in the middle of a story and not continue it. That is ridiculous. And that's why I don't know who the powers that be in Warner Brothers could assist us in getting that reset and get that in that direction. The only two people I think that have any kind of common sense and actually are level headed and probably would engage that idea and nourish that thought would be Abdi and Luca, but I don't know if they're in a position to be able to do that and sort of reel in the direction that Warner Brothers is headlong going into, where they're going to crash and burn. And since DC franchise, they earn a substantial amount of money with that, I would suggest that Abdi and DeLuca, if they do ever hear this video or ever hear this message, that they should work tirelessly to see that completed, to see the story completed of Superman, because it's a great story that Zach is doing. And, as I said before, I think most DC fans would love to see that happen. I think the fan base, not even DC fans, the audience that would come to see this DC stuff, I think Ben Affleck fans will come and see it. Gal Gadot fans will come and see it, even though I don't think Gal Gadot should come back. That's the only technicality there. Everybody else, I guess, they could come back, but not Gal. But unless Gal has a repentance in her heart and changes the way, because she's talking about how fans are boycotting her stuff. It's because, and I don't even allow people to post up much of her stuff. I do let people sometimes post up some of the stuff in the Wonder Woman group that I have. It's mostly comic book stuff now. I allow them to do, but Gal needs to understand something. I can't endorse someone who is right now willing to annihilate me if you think that I am some kind of threat to you and you're playing victim on me and you will annihilate me. No, I'm not for that. The Palestinian people are some of the poorest people in the world. And to see them being taken advantage and killed and murdered and raped and butchered and tortured, and she is trying to have the Israelis as the victim, Gal needs to check herself. Seriously. She needs to check herself. Shout out to Mark Ruffalo. Shout out to John Cusack. They are both Jewish people, but they're not buying into the bullshit that's going on. And Mark Ruffalo's not letting up. And shout out to him. Free Palestine, of course, even though the stream is not about that. So I'm not, and don't get me wrong, Gal's a pretty decent actor, in my opinion. She's good. My problem is her support for genocide, her support for the IDF, her support for her government's decision. I cannot back that. And there's no way in hell I'm going to be backing that. And if that's the kind of person she is, Hollywood really needs to give her a break and tell her, you know what, we don't need you around us. Because they did that to Kevin Spacey. They did that to Bryan Singer. Joss Whedon has kind of been exiled because of that. And Gal Gadot needs to be exiled for that. There's no way in God's green earth I'm going to support what Gal is doing. And I'm definitely not going to support her as an actress. So you can forget about that. And even though she sort of fit the mold of Wonder Woman, she's not representing Wonder Woman right now. And Henry Cavill's representing Superman on and off the screen. His character and how he behaves, how he thinks about people, how he cares for people. He behaves like Superman on and off the screen. Ray Fisher got a big heart. He reminds me of Cyborg on and off the street. Even Ray Fisher denounced what's happening in Palestine. That's the natural reaction I expect. I haven't heard anything from Ezra Miller. I don't know what's going on with him. And of course, Jason Momoa, he's playing, I think, Lobo or something like that in James Gunn's universe. But if we can't get him back for Aquaman, we just replace him with somebody else. But I would like to see Jason Momoa back as Aquaman. But again, Jason Momoa has been kind of, after he's, pushed for releasing the Snyder Cut, he's kind of, he's been like a bitch for Warner Brothers. Like, he's doing whatever they tell him to do. And he's trying to stay under James Gunn and all this. And I don't know, bro. I don't know, I hope Jason can grow some pair of balls and not be in the sewage. He broke up with Lisa Monet. I think that was the worst thing he could possibly have done. Lisa Monet is a really awesome, grounded individual who would keep you on track. And I don't know, Jason's like, I don't know if they butt fucked him or something. I don't know what happened, but he's been on the loose end for the longest while. And Jason's such a great actor and a great director and just a great person all around. I'm really, really disappointed with Jason, but I hope he can get it together. I hope that Zack Snyder can get him back on track with Aquaman. But oh man, Jason Momoa, and he's a tribal person. You know, he comes from a tribe and everything. I don't know what's going on with Jason, but I hope. You know, he's been in a successful Minecraft movie, but with Jack Black, and that was great. But I don't know, man. Jason, I hope. I'm just praying for Jason. That's what I'm doing. I'm praying for Jason. You know, Ezra, I don't have a problem with Ezra. You know, I realized a lot of the things that they were circulating about Ezra wasn't true. Ezra does have a weird lifestyle, sexually speaking, but you know, that what a man's personal business is a man's personal business once he ain't raping, molesting people. But you know, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? And Gal was really the perfect Wonder Woman until now. You know, it really sucks what's happening. But anyway, my point is, you have a fan base for Henry Cavill. You have a fan base for Ben Affleck. That's Superman and Batman. You have a fan base for Gal, but the fan base is not really right now supporting her, which makes sense. And I'm not doing it either. Um, so I think that you're not just going to get DC fans. You're not just going to get a DC audience that has Snyder fans. You know, Zack Snyder's big as well. So people will come just to support Zack Snyder to see his film. But you also have the fandoms of Ben Affleck, the fandoms of Henry Cavill. You know, these are big fan bases as well. And then on top of that, you got to remember that when doing these films and watching these films, Restore the Snyderverse is a phenomenon. They said this it will never be restored. You know, this is one of those. It's setting up for a huge Hollywood curiosity and people just coming to see these movies because it seems as though the Snyderverse will be restored, and it's just a lot going on that hypes it up even more. Just like with the Snyder Cut. So all of that will play into why putting out the Snyderverse trilogy into global circulation for a limited amount of time. I'm not asking Warner Brothers to put it out for 6 weeks or 4 weeks or all that. 2 weeks apiece, that's 6 weeks. And to then make a decision after these films have been released to restore the Snyderverse, right? Whether they're going to restore it or not. I think that's the common sense way to go about doing it because it doesn't cost you a whole set of money to put these films out. If it costs you a couple of maybe 100 million, maybe 80 million to do that. And it doesn't have to have a big set of advertising because again, you have the fandom, you have the Snyder fandom that will do part of that job for you. And then you will still have to do some sort of advertising of some kind so people will know. But by and large, that could be something really big. You know, they put out Batman Returns, and I think they put out Batman 1989. And I believe that's an initiative again by Abdi and DeLuca. I don't think that's something James Gunn was behind. And I think Abdi and DeLuca are doing a great job of showcasing creators. Remember Beetlejuice. You remember Tim Burton hadn't gotten a job with WB for the longest while. And then they came out with Beetlejuice 2 and they allowed Tim Burton to do his thing. I think Abdi and DeLuca are the vehicle. I'm not going to try and thump their chest too much, but they're the vehicle for if there's any chance with Warner Brothers, they're the ones who will restore the Snyderverse, I think. Regardless of what legal frameworks or whatever is going on, if you're talking about Warner Brothers, they would be the ones. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to do it, and I'm not saying that Warner Brothers will do it, and I'm not saying that the Snyderverse can't be restored outside of Warner Brothers. I'm not saying none of that, okay? But what I'm saying is that I think we have that opportunity here. And I think because Superman did not perform overall to the level that WBD wanted it to perform, it fell short. As I said before, it's a flop. They put a lot of money into that thing, and it hasn't produced the results they're looking for. I think that it would make sense to put out these films and make some extra cash off of these films. And cash in on not just the Snyder fandom, but you have to think about the other fandoms outside there. There's a huge Henry Cavill fandom that, you know, Henry Cavill showed up in Deadpool and Wolverine as a Calverine. And people will say, well, Henry Cavill came in last minute on Black Adam. And Black Adam didn't do so well. It was a flop. Well, without Henry Cavill, do you think Black Adam would have made those kinds of figures? I remember they didn't have China. Listen, there was just one thing. I'm going to tell this. I'm speaking directly to Abdi and DeLuca if they listen. There's just one thing that kept Black Adam from killing it in the cinemas. Black Adam should have been an $800 million plus film. And you know why Black Adam did not make $800 million? I'm going to tell you straight up. It wasn't linked to the Snyderverse. And Black Adam was coming off of Zack Snyder's Justice League, which did not see cinemas. And, mind you, the Suicide Squad, which had nothing to do with Zack Snyder's Justice League, came after, and it flopped. So it was coming off of a flop that just recently happened, but there's a Zack Snyder Justice League, which did not see cinemas. If The Rock had presented Henry Cavill coming to confront him in that black suit with the Hans Zimmer theme playing, we know it was last minute. We knew after Comic-Con, that's when The Rock was able to get Henry Cavill there, because Henry Cavill didn't show up for Comic-Con. All right. So when if The Rock had gotten Henry Cavill coming into blacks, let me tell you how big that would have been. It would have said, regardless of whether the thing mesh up, the story meshes up with the Snyderverse or not, regardless of what Amanda Waller was doing in that movie, if he had come in that black suit with that Hans Zimmer theme, let me tell you what would have happened. Yo, people would have said there's a chance that these people are serious about restoring the Snyderverse, because they know the last thing in the Snyderverse. And let me tell you something. When you look at Black Adam, it looks more like Man of Steel. It looks more like a Snyderverse film. It does. It looks more like a Snyderverse. The Rock must have tried hard, but he dropped the ball. Because here's the thing. When he was interviewed by I forgot the name of the company. When he was interviewed by the company, and we saw clips of Zack Snyder's Justice League because they wanted to talk about the Justice Society, but we saw a clip of Justice League. You know what clip they borrowed from that in that interview? They borrowed from Zack Snyder's Justice League. They did not borrow from Justice League 2017. And that resonated with me, because the more positive received film was Zack Snyder's Justice League. And when I saw that, I said, oh man, now if Henry Cavill shows up at the end in that black suit with Hans Zimmer's theme playing, it's over. It's over. If Snyder fans have seen that, you're gonna have $500+ million would have poured in on that movie. Simple talk. It seems like a simple thing, but they missed making $800 million. That film could have been a tremendous success. Tremendous success. Because you link up with the Snyderverse. So here's what I'm saying, so that people will understand. Now that the Gunverse is separate from the Snyderverse, James Gunn has severed ties. He's replaced what is in the Snyderverse with his Justice Gang. So it's separate now. This is the opportunity to put out the Snyderverse. Abdi and DeLuca need to think about this, because of course James Gunn is going to try and resist it, but James Gunn don't have that much leverage anymore, right? His movie flopped at the box office. It underperformed. And his movie was a Justice Gang Superman movie, right? This was an ensemble movie that was supposed to do so well, because James Gunn's movies in Marvel, they make $700 to $800 million, right? That didn't happen. Now, if James Gunn's Superman had made $700 to $800 million, it would have been profitable and a success. No doubt about it. Hands down. That didn't happen. Okay? And they can, waffle as much as they want about domestic figures. They ain't happy about this film, because internationally it just underperformed. This film took 4 weekends to get to $600 million after it passed $500 million. That's not good by any metric. Okay. And we haven't even talked about inflation. Right. So, and then we know they put out a lot of money on this film. And they lost a lot of money on this film. So the alternative, James Gunn had his chance with COVID, right? With The Suicide Squad, that movie was a flop. And now he's had it with Superman, and that movie's a flop. So now, Abdi and DeLuca have this decision to make. Matt Reeves' Batman movie. Are we going to continue down the road of stalling that off and letting James Gunn do more stuff to cost the company more money? Or are we going to allow Matt Reeves to finish his trilogy and allow Zack Snyder to cook and finish his trilogy of Justice League movies? That's the big question. Because I'm going to say this. They didn't let Zack Snyder finish his trilogy. And they're also stalling on Matt Reeves finishing his trilogy. I want you to understand, all because of fucking James Gunn? Are you for real? Are you for real? This clown gets all that leverage? So Matt Reeves can't finish his shit. Zack Snyder can't finish his shit. But this clown who has done nothing for the company, he's only caused debt for the company, he gets to finish his shit? Nah. Any level-headed person understands. That's why I said the opportunity for restore the Snyderverse is big. Now, people say, well, if we were going to get confused, if James Gunn have a Batman, and if Matt Reeves have a Batman, and if Zack Snyder have a Batman, nobody's going to get confused with shit. Fans of Ben Affleck going to go and see Zack Snyder stuff. Batman fans going to go and see Matt Reeves stuff. And they might even go and see James Gunn stuff. Because once you say Batman, fans of Batman can't get enough of Batman. So if you give me 3 different versions of Batman, I'm in heaven. I'm in Batman heaven. So you ain't going to lose out on Batman. You see what I'm saying? You can't lose. What? I'm getting Batman, and I'm getting Batman again, and I'm getting Batman again. I'm happy, man. Show me 3 different versions of Batman. I'm cool with that, right? But the most people who go see the Snyderverse or Zack Snyder's Justice League or, Batman v Superman to see Batman, those fans are more than likely Ben Affleck fans as well as they're Snyder fans or DC fans who like the Snyderverse and are coming to see it, right? The Matt Reeves Batman will benefit off of that because Batman being in there, Batman's popular. You've seen Batman a lot. So they're going to love that, right? And people might even go see Matt Reeves Batman because they thinking, oh, shit, we're going to see Snyder's Batman. Then they realize, oh, it's Matt Reeves Batman. But nonetheless, Matt Reeves is a great director. He'll give a decent enough story. So you go see his Batman, you won't be totally disappointed. You'll be cool. You'll say, oh, it's a cool little something. You know what I'm saying? It's a Batman story. It's a cool little something. You know what I mean? The Batman wasn't bad. It was safe. It wasn't bad. It was a little boring, but it wasn't bad. All right. So my point is, Matt Reeves now getting that canvas to do his second Batman movie. Why not? Okay. Why are we stopping Matt Reeves from doing what he do? You know what I'm saying? He cooking. Let him cook. Okay. The problem with this studio is they always do incomplete shit. They make people stop doing things. And this studio needs to say, green light on that, green light on that, green light on that. If James Gunn is doing this thing, let him cook, right? If Matt Reeves is doing this thing, let him cook. If Zack Snyder is doing this thing, let him cook. More the merrier. Now you have more versions of stuff, right? That's what needs to happen. And James Gunn is getting in the way of letting people cook. And that's just not what Abdi and DeLuca are about. They're more like, let them cook, man. Let them cook. Let Zack Snyder cook. Let Matt Reeves cook. Let James Gunn cook. That's that. Abdi and DeLuca are more, they prefer to green light certain things, right? They cancel some projects, I remember that, but still, they more want to green light things. And I think Abdi and DeLuca, if it was allowed them alone, them would allow the Snyderverse stuff come about. But I don't know if there's some sort of legal ramification why Zack Snyder can't continue on these things. because I do believe there are a number of executives in Warner Brothers who do not want to see Zack Snyder come back, right? And they articulate it to us every day on social media through certain accounts, fake accounts, and so on. So that's the truth. I think there's a rift in there. Abdi and DeLuca are on one side. They want to push forward things. They're pretty effective as producers, but I think there's a set of executives in Warner Brothers who are of the mindset that Zack Snyder would ruin DC and they don't want him back, irregardless of all the facts that show that he's not bad for DC. Irregardless of that, they're pushing back, and I think that's what's happening in there, right? But by and large, I think people who are not executives, people who work in Warner Brothers, want to see Zack come back. Zack has good relationships with people who work in Warner Brothers. So the company, the people in the company, not everybody in the company is anti-Zack. I think most of the people in the company love Zack. They love what he's doing. But David Zaza was listening to James Gunn. It was listening to this asshole Jeff Johns, those kind of execs who would not want to see Zack back. Tommy Emmerich and them kind of assholes, right? Zaza been listening to them because they trying to convince him that Zack's not good for the brand or whatever, and we're trying to go to Marvel, and this is what's going on in there, I believe. And Abdi and DeLuca now, they're like, nah, man, let Zack cook. They would be like, oh, let him cook. This guy's a good director. He made a great movie. Zaza, if you loved Zack Snyder's Justice League, right, okay, let him cook. Let him finish off his story. You know what I'm saying? Whereas James Gunn now would be like, well, let me launch off my platform. Let me get my footing under me. Let me get a win before you do all that. To kind of suspend everything, let me get a win. That's what James Gunn's coming to them with. And he hasn't gotten a win yet. So he's going to try and clamp down everything to get a win. When really and truly, if James Gunn wasn't so fucking narcissistic and selfish, he'd be cooking. Zack be cooking. Matt Reeves be cooking. They do their thing. And because Zack be successful, whether Zack comes out before him or after or whatever, because Zack is successful, that feeds off and Gunn gets more successful. And people are more willing to watch James Gunn's shit. And even if I don't like James Gunn's shit, I probably won't go see it. But, now the demographic that likes his shit can go watch it. And even if let's say it breaks even. Let's say some of his shit break even. Then his universe now gets to piggyback off of Zack and Matt Reeves' success. Because Matt Reeves is going to be successful with the next Batman movie. Don't even get it twisted. He gonna do something and he's going to be successful, right? So, because Matt Reeves has proven to us he can do Batman, right? So, there's no if, buts, or maybe about what needs to happen. Warner Bros. Can have a much more profitable DC, a DC with better reputation. See, what happened is this, right? You keep Zack Snyder's stuff going. You satisfy his fan base. You satisfy also the general DC audience who will go and watch that stuff. James Gunn's stuff that comes out in cinemas will be seen by some as an alternative to that or something a little different with a different flavor. So now people are more open-minded to watching James Gunn shit. And the people who are dogmatic and love James Gunn shit, they get satisfied as well, right? And here's the thing. James Gunn gets to do his stuff. His success is a little better because the positive feedback from what Zack Snyder has done trickles across to him because DC's DC as far as certain people are concerned. So that success trickles across to James Gunn. And he may punt the ball, he may fuck up the ball, he may actually do well because of the success. Because once you got something that you can watch that's good on the big screen, right? You had a satisfying experience. Now it gives James Gunn more wiggle room to fuck up. You know what I'm saying? It's just like Marvel. People were looking forward to the big Marvel movies, but in between movies, you can fuck up the movie a little bit and stuff because people are interested in what comes ahead with the big thing. They would go and see your stuff. You know what I'm saying? When I found out that Zack Snyder's Justice League, the Snyder Cut was coming out, I went and saw Wonder Woman. It was shit, but I went and saw it. So they got some ticket sales from me. You understand what I'm saying? So people are more likely to be more lenient and less destructive of your material if you are piggybacking off of something else, right? And that is what Warner Brothers never gets. The executives are so stupid, they never understand that you need the marquee directors. Abdi and DeLuca get it. They get it. They're the only two people probably in the entire Warner Brothers that gets it as executives. That gets it. They get it. You want the marquee names. You know, Warner Brothers didn't bring back Tim Burton for a long time. They got Zack Snyder in there working on 300 on a TV show, right? You know why? Because Zack Snyder's Watchmen, they couldn't replicate it. They couldn't replicate that Watchmen series very well. They weren't doing a great job. They understand talent. They understand what the creatives do, and that's why they have Zack Snyder working on that. Now let me say something. Because Zack Snyder's working on different projects, right? I'm gonna tell you this, and this is why I'm so on this topic, because again, we have the multiverse and all of that. How the multiverse operates and works, I guess we don't need a consensus on that. Whoever wants to do their take, fine. But here's the thing about this. James Gunn stuff is not working. It's turning away people in the droves, right? I hear them trying to talk about, the James Gunn cut of Superman. And I talked about it. I said, hey, look, you can't be chopping up directors' visions. You shouldn't do that, right? So they hear people now, after hearing me say, well, we want to cut up James Gunn's Superman, the longer version. That sounds good. I'm not against that. I don't like James Gunn's style, but I'm all for the creatives being creative and expressing themselves appropriately. I would like to know, I'm sure his cut of the movie is going to be more smoother, more coherent. I'm pretty sure about that. That much I know. You don't have a director make whatever the original film was and however it flowed, it'll probably flow better. It might be more atrocious, it might be more controversial, but it'll flow better. And that's the important thing you got to understand, right? Because you can't make a storyteller cut up things, Anyway, so with respect to restoring the Snyderverse and why I keep on speaking on this and why it is possible, the only reason it's possible for the Snyderverse to be restored is because how poorly DC is performing at present. And when you look back at the Snyderverse, it is by light years performs better than the current DC that we have and the DC we had for the last 8 years, right? And if the studio don't get this memo, they don't understand that Marvelizing DC is not the way to go. Too bad. So they can continue with that. But if you're going to continue with that and continue with James Gunn, please, by all means, Abdi and DeLuca, you're a green light kind of people. Let the Snyderverse happen. And by all means, do not shut down Matt Reeves now. Okay? Don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Let the man cook. Right? We need more options. The more options you have to go and watch movies is the more people you get out to go and watch those movies. Right? That's what you want. You want to be entertained. And then they say, well, where are we going to get the capital for that? That's why you put out the Snyderverse trilogy. That's where you want to get your capital to do the Snyderverse. I mean, come on now. I mean, can you be that stupid? You don't understand that? Right? So that's the pitch that needs to be pitched to this company that's doing it. It's just going down and down and down. While Abdi and DeLuca's getting a couple, some money for different things. They got one close to $1 million tempo that was Minecraft. They ain't got nothing else. They ain't got nothing else. So, I mean, you have to be able to use your brain and produce some good stuff, man. Last thing we need out here is a Disneyfication of DC. Man, DC gonna die. Y'all gonna kill off DC with that. Okay, nobody going in no cinema to watch that shit. Okay, been watching shit for the last 8 years, and this was more of it. So if you want to restore the Snyderverse, right? You want $1 billion film, guaranteed Snyderverse can deliver that to you for sure, and interest. But the question is, are you willing to put your foot forward and make sure that that happens? Too many times, and this is what I love about Abdi and Luca, they have brought back Tim Burton and they did Beetlejuice 2. But the problem with it is Tim Burton has Superman Lives. I'm gonna say I gotta say these things. It's this season. It's the season of Aquarius. It's his time. Tim Burton didn't get no respect for Superman Lives. But y'all gonna have a black Superman with what that kid J.J. Abrams supposed to do some black Superman. For the longest while, he got paid for it, I hear. And this motherfucker ain't produced nothing. So y'all just waste money on a black Superman, right? Y'all willing to do a black Superman, but you ain't willing to see what Tim Burton had in store with Superman Lives? Y'all some stupid ass motherfuckers, man. Y'all stupid. I'm telling you, stupid. You take a guy like Tim Burton is not one you play with, man. Y'all got Zack Snyder doing 300 home. Motherfucker's a brilliant director, and you have him do. I mean, I'm just trying to. I get what Abdi and DeLuca is doing. Now I'm hearing that they want to bring back James Wan. James Wan said, "Fuck y'all. He going back into horror. Leave the man alone. Leave James Wan alone." Very successful director, by the way. But y'all fucked him over. Just like how you fucked over Zach. Just how you fucked over Patty. Patty gave you an $824 million film in Wonder Woman. And y'all fucked her over. Right? Zach gave you an $874 million film. And you fucked him over. Think about the people I'm talking about. James Wan gave you $1.15 billion film. And you fucked him over. You've got to be able to understand, and that's what Abdi and DeLuca are different. They understand the talent, man. You can't have the talent being touched by some fucking CEO, man. James Gunn needs to keep his grimy hands to himself. If you're doing your universe, you focus on that. Leave every other motherfucker's creative stuff alone. Okay? Leave it alone. You in your DCU. You do your DCU. Don't fuck with Matt Reeves stuff. And don't fuck with James Wan stuff. And don't fuck with Zack Snyder stuff. And don't fuck with Andy Muschietti stuff. You fuck with all those stuff. You fucked up Andy Muschietti's movie. You fucked up James Wan's movie. And we're not supposed to be mad at you, motherfucker? So, anyway. My point being that I don't hear about nobody taking no fucking notes. That ain't happening. Matt Reeves has his universe. He had a contract to deal with his universe. And James Gunn is trying to block this man from finishing his stuff. And James Gunn needs to keep his fucking hands to himself. You want to do whatever you want to do creatively with the DCU, fine. But motherfucker, keep your hands to yourself. Don't go touching Matt Reeves stuff. This is the problem with Warner Brothers. You have these fucking execs trying to tell other people what to do. When your job is to make sure that the currency, the financing, and stuff is in order. The creatives are supposed to do what they do. Whether you like it or not, they will have to live or die by what they do. Right? And don't tell me about no fucking screenings. Who are the people that you bring to your screenings? That's the question. If you bring in WB Shields to your screenings, you're going to get dishonest answers. So you have to understand what it is. Successful movies, yes, they go through different stages and stuff, and they have to. But at the end of the day, this studio tampers too fucking much with their creators. We are not Marvel. We are not the MCU. We're not Disney. I don't give a fuck how Disney micromanages their workers. That's why everything seems the same. It seems like the same story, same plot, same shit. You're trying to copy Disney. Why? Disney been doing this shit for years, for decades, for centuries almost. Not centuries, but decades, right? Disney's good at what they do. You are not Disney. Stop trying to be Disney. What the fuck is wrong with you? You be what you are. The first billion-dollar movie was The Dark Knight. You wasn't micromanaging Christopher Nolan. So why the fuck do you think you need to be an assembly line micromanaging directors? And every time you touch something, you fuck it up. Can't you leave things alone? Just leave it alone. So that's what I got to say. I know some of you agree with me on this. For the gun fans out there, if you like James Gunn stuff, you like James Gunn stuff. That's not my thing, though. I'm telling you right now, that's not my thing. Okay? I don't like his stuff. But that's me. Now, for the James Gunn fans out there, I'm going to say this to y'all. You should be supporting us in what we're doing. The reason being, there's a way to bring healing and balance to everything. Especially the James Gunn fans who are also Snyder fans. When y'all come around saying the Snyderverse is dead, move on, which is not true. Snyderverse is alive. It's just not continued. There is a difference. When you come around saying that and you think you've done something, you have to understand your universe is not alive at all. It's struggling to breathe. It's not alive, or it's on the verge of dying. Okay? Because James Gunn's Creature Commandos didn't get the kind of views that it needed to get. His Peacemaker was overhyped. It actually didn't get the kind of views that people said it got compared to other platforms. James Gunn be struggling to carry through the stuff. His TSS didn't make no money. And now his Superman movie is not going to make no money. And here you are bragging that the Snyderverse is not being continued. That's stupid. And don't echo the sentiments of dumb executives in the studio, like Jeff Johns and all those guys, even though it seems like they're not around, they're around. Okay? And they have influence. And I'm saying this to you because I want to see, at least creatively, creators do their thing. So we have never in Restore the Snyderverse said that we want the Snyderverse to replace the Gunverse, which clearly that's what it is now, or the Reverse. We've never said that. We simply have been saying that we want to see the Snyderverse restored. We want to see it continue. We want to see Zack Snyder finish his story. And any other spinoffs from that, fine. And I have spoken now about, I've made a very strong case for the Snyderverse in several different ways. One, I'm showing you how it can cross over with Marvel. I've showed you how the Snyderverse is something that is very profitable. I just proved it with Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck as two very prominent people with their own fan bases. Even Gal Gadot has a fan base, and that's the Trinity right there. I've shown you how, because DC's not doing well at all right now. Everything is flopping. That the only universe of DC that did well and had sequels that actually did well was the Snyderverse. So I've given you financial information. I've given you bottom line. People love Henry Cavill. They love Ben Affleck. I've given you reasons where your universe ain't doing so good. That's why we even have Restore the Snyderverse. That's why it's doing so well. There's no alternative that's better. So it really is in the interest of everyone, including Warner Brothers Pictures, to restore the Snyderverse, regardless of what their fucking executives say, their brain dead executives say, right? You guys, that is the gun fans. I'm talking about real fans. I'm not talking about bots. I'm not talking about executives. I'm talking about the real fans. You guys that like guns material, you know what? I'd say this to you. I would say, so be it. I'm not saying get rid of him. I'm not saying replace him right now. I'm saying if he's doing his thing, he's doing his thing. But here's my thing. Matt Reeves should be able to do his thing. Zack Snyder should be able to do his thing. And spin-offs of those things. And I'll tell you why. Because, as y'all so correctly said, DC is very varied. And because it's so varied, and considering how Abdi and DeLuca greenlight a lot of things, they're not closed-minded and they're not gatekeepers. They greenlight things. They like original ideas. With the DC IP, James Gunn has to sign off finally on it. But I'm thinking James Gunn is just working him way into a corner, and he's getting less and less leeway as time goes along because there's less and less confidence in him. But one of the ways how James Gunn could still continue making movies is through the Snyderverse actually being restored. If he's not a selfish narcissist, he'll be able to see that. It's not about competing with the Snyderverse. We're all DC. We're all in the same team. And we want to see DC succeed. And it's not about Snyder being under you and taking notes. No, he's his own man doing his own thing, and the people spinning off of him do their own thing. And you will say, well, then why is James Gunn CEO of DC Studios? Well, why do we have DC Studios? We have DC Studios because they have Marvel Studios. That's the only reason. The real people who should be managing this shit should be Abdi and DeLuca. Okay? And I say all of this to say this. I think there is a chance for redemption in so many different ways. Let me explain. We already have characters from the DCEU that could go back and transition back into the Snyderverse. We saw a Black Adam on the stream, The Rock. And while The Rock may not have administrative control over everything, because I would have Abdi and DeLuca, we could potentially still have a Black Adam, particularly in the Snyderverse. Okay? Because he leans more towards the Snyderverse. He definitely is not for the reverse. And I don't think he'd be in place in the Gunverse. So he'd be great in the Snyderverse. So that Black Adam doesn't have to be a one and done thing. You see? We can have Harley Quinn. I don't think that James Gunn is going to use Margot Robbie in his universe. I don't think so. I could be wrong. He did direct her in the film, The Suicide Squad, but I don't think so. I think she and Jared Leto, because he's already gotten rid of Jared Leto. He didn't have Jared Leto. She and Jared Leto, they actually belong in the Snyderverse. And they were a part of the Snyderverse in the Air cut. You would see Margot Robbie in the Air cut of David Ayer's Suicide Squad. So in a way, they have been actors who have been part of the Snyderverse. I think Jared Leto, Harley Quinn, could return to the Snyderverse. You know what I'm saying? So I think that would be a very good thing if that happens. Now you may ask yourself, well, why are you padding up the Snyderverse like that? I'm gonna tell you why. Because I'm not saying that these people will end up there. I'm just saying you had the same actor play in different universes. Henry Cavill was in the Marvelized universe, Jeff Johns on Day and Joss Whedon, and also Ben Affleck and all of them. The same actors were in a different universe, if you get what I'm saying. It wasn't the Snyderverse. And Harley Quinn has played the character multiple times in another universe, right? She was in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, and she was also in Birds of Prey. Both flopped. You also had Ezra Miller, who was part of the CW, and then he was also part of he cameoed in the CW, and he also was part of his own movie, which is, I call it the Marvelverse. Okay, I know it was a Hamadaverse, but I'm just saying. So what I'm basically saying is that Actually, when I think of this, it brings about another idea. But what I'm saying is that if you put Ezra back in the Snyderverse, it's cool. You put Harley Quinn back in the Snyderverse, that's cool. You get Ray Fisher going doing his thing in the Snyderverse. Now, I don't give a fuck what Jeff Johns said to Ray Fisher. I couldn't care less. Abdi and DeLuca are in charge now. And I think DC Studios, we're trying to copy Marvel. That's some fucking shit. Close that down and let Abdi and DeLuca handle everything. Like Damian Anton Vincent so correctly said. So what you end up with is a bunch of directors, they're giving their vision for something, but they're in different universes. They're dealing with a specific story. It's like different comic book runs. So it's like Abdi and DeLuca are managing different comic book runs, right? James Gunn is writing his comic book run. You got Matt Reeves writing his comic book run, and you got Zack Snyder writing his comic book run, right? They're not the be all and end all leaders of their comic book runs, because individual directors along, say, Snyder's comic book run, it's kind of like when a different writer comes and writes on the comic book run. It's the same thing. So, like, if Patty Jenkins is brought back to do some sort of Wonder Woman something, she'd be on the comic book run with Zack Snyder. But when she's on that comic book run with Zack Snyder, she's writing her own take on it. But there's a fixed world. If you get what I'm saying, the world, she's not world building. Zack Snyder kind of world built that already, and it's there. And now you can do whatever you want inside that world. You know what I mean? It's like that. So that's why we call it the Snyderverse. Whereas the Marvelverse or the Hamadaverse or the Johnverse or the Rockverse, those were built on a kind of Marvel-like worlds. The aesthetics. I'm not talking about the different places and whatever. The aesthetics was built on a kind of Marvelized aesthetics. So, the focus could be less on aesthetics and more on, unless you're building a world of some kind inside the world, it could be focused more on story and the characters in the story. And you finish off that run. That's if Patty Jenkins wants to do something like that. So why that is something that could be considered, again, this is all prerequisite on the performance of the Snyderverse trilogy. If the Snyderverse trilogy doesn't make no money, then from this, okay, no problem. It didn't make no money. Fine. We're not doing Restore the Snyderverse. And then we all cool with that. And some of us will still continue to ask for it, but we'll have some data, right? But the likelihood of that happening is probably zero, given the notorious nature of the Snyderverse and the fact that people are saying, oh, it'll never be restored. Oh, boy. Y'all just helping us out, man. You just making a case. Just like with the Snyder Cut, the same thing. You know what I'm saying? So when that thing comes out, it's probably going to make waves. It's going to make some big waves. And I said 2 weeks per run because it's the Snyderverse, right? Zack Snyder Justice League will not get a full run. Might get 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. Depends. If Zack Snyder Justice League do well in theaters and stuff, a 4-year-old movie doing well in theaters, maybe it'll extend it to 4 weeks or whatever. 4 weeks, 6 weeks, let it run out. By 6 weeks, it should have already topped up and probably make an extra 30, 40 million. You don't need that. So, the point I'm making is that there's money to be made in a big way, which will satisfy a large chunk of the DC going audience. Or even if they're not DC going audience, Henry Cavill fans or Ben Affleck fans, it will satisfy them. So that's why you want to do it. And the reason I'm saying this is because this studio has an opportunity. It has material sitting down on shelves there that really, you need to do some director's justice. Tim Burton needs justice. I heard Mr. Schumacher had a cut of Batman, for example, that never saw the light of day because the studio wanted it more campy, more funny. Real fucked up shit. I would love to see the more serious version of that. So people have been campaigning for a while to release a Schumacher cut of Batman. And I think, given what happens with the Snyderverse trilogy, I don't know, you might have money for that too. So I'm just saying that, a lot of people are talking about, uh, righting the wrongs, righting the wrongs, because you can't move forward if you keep on committing wrongs against people, and you're not learning from your mistakes and you're not righting those wrongs. And I could see people like Abdi and DeLuca, patching that shit up because they're gonna bring certain directors back to do certain things. And Beetlejuice was a success. Tim Burton's Beetlejuice was a success. The second one, the sequel, showing you how great Tim Burton is as a director. He gonna get you that, he gonna get you that money. He gonna get you that entertainment. You know what I'm saying? And I just hope that that studio would rely more on calmer, more reasonable people. Yes, every movie is not going to make money. Okay, they're not going to have like a run like Greg Silverman yet. Okay, but what they will have is a decent run that will make the studio money instead of losing it money. And just in case James Gunn is losing the studio money, then there's DC films that can make money for them. You know what I'm saying? So that it can offset whatever James Gunn is doing. So that's what I'm saying. And I don't know why a studio would stick with James Gunn, but after so many failures, he wasn't Captain Failure like them, like James Gunn. He did have movies that didn't make money. Sucker Punch was one of the movies that did not make money for the studio. Everything else, even Owls of Gahul, he said Sucker Punch and Owls of Gahul didn't make the money, but everything else made them money, the studio money, which is crazy. Okay, Netflix is happy with Zack, but Zack Snyder, as I said before, he should be allowed to finish his films. Don't leave something just suspended in thin air like that. And I think also Tim Burton should be able to do his version of Superman. Seeing that James Gunn get to do a version of Superman, me personally, I know the Gunn fans out there, but me personally, I thought it was a trashy version of Superman. I thought it was crap, right? Maybe his longer cut, maybe his original thing might be better, or it might be worse. I think it would be better because it'll be more fluent. And I think some of the gaps in logic and reasoning, how the movie's made, how it's so haphazardly made, just like reminds me of Suicide Squad 2016, haphazardly made because David Ayer David Ayer had a different tone, a different voicing and everything. And I feel like I don't think James Gunn is that bad a director. That's what I'm saying. He did Guardians of the Galaxy films, and I think he's much better than what that Superman film was given. So I'm not against James Gunn, even though I don't agree with him, and I know and we see how depraved he can be in doing storytelling. Still, besides that, I have to look at him as a filmmaker, a creative, and you have to give these creatives the opportunity to make more money off of their films. One, two, to be able to do their version. A lot of times, creatives not going out there giving the version that they really want to give. You know what I mean? Other times they do need help, but you have to see. Sometimes you just need to go out there and crash and burn, and then go back to the drawing board. You know what I'm saying? It'd be off the scene for a while, but go back to the drawing board and improve your craft. So that's what I got to say about that. But yeah, Restore the Snyderverse is something that really can happen. I see you guys smashing that like button. Shout out to all those people smashing the like button. Restore the Snyderverse is something that can happen. Definitely will probably more than likely happen regardless of who's there. But the opportunity for Warner Brothers Pictures, particularly through Abdi and DeLuca, to make that opportunity a reality is still there, right? It's still there. There are different possibilities that wherever the legalities is that they have to overcome, they need to overcome those legalities and get it popping, man. Get it popping. Because I'll tell you this, you put the Snyderverse trilogy into cinemas. Remember, the Snyderverse trilogy is what it is already. You don't have to do any production budgets. You don't have to spend a whole set of money on marketing. The marketing will be costly, but not costly like putting out a brand new movie. You know what I mean? Because they're putting out Batman 1989 and Batman and Robin. They're putting it out. They're putting it out there for the public in the United States, I believe, not worldwide. But with Zack Snyder's Justice League and BVS, particularly the Ultimate Edition, you need to put that out worldwide, and you need to get IMAX. And I know everything's scheduled for the year, but you gotta move aside something and put something else in its place. That's what you gotta do. You gotta find a 6-week window and put that stuff in there. That's what they need to do. And I'm telling you, man, they won't regret that. They won't regret that. And I've been talking about this for the longest while. And to me, this is the most comprehensive way to go about doing it. You put those things out. You're not making no new movies. You're not editing anything. You're putting the movies out because they're IMAX ready and everything. You put them out. You announce it first, and then you decide to put them out, and then you get some advertising on wherever, whatever media platforms you put it out on, and you see what happens. And what's a good time to put out that stuff? The trilogy? I don't know. Maybe later on this year. Maybe coming down to the end of the year. But you need to make an announcement about those things. Like I said before, these things need to be announced, man. You got to announce this stuff. This is the 4th year since Zack Snyder Justice League has come out, and it's important. Just like with the 4th year, when Zack Snyder Justice, I think the 3rd year into the 4th or something like that, where Zack Snyder Justice League was announced to come out. It's about time they announce that these movies are going to come out on cinema for limited release. Y'all need to do that now. This year is the year to do it. Chop chop, because I don't know if Warner Brothers will be around in the capacity that it is now next year. That's what I'm saying. Abdi and Luca have been doing a decent job in Warner Brothers with a lot of their films and material, but the sad part about it is they still can't save the company. When you got big tycoon, big blockbusters like comic book movies, they need to do well. When they don't do well, it really harms everything else that the studio has in store and in place. So it's really up to this studio and some of their dumbass executives to be able to understand this and to plot a course accordingly that involves the Snyderverse, that involves Matt Reeves' Batman verse, that of course involves James Gunn's Gunverse that he's trying to get afloat and get going, right? Because again, the success of the Gunverse, or whatever you want to call it, it's really imperative because they've been sticking with this thing. It's been failing for 8 years, but they've been sticking with Marvelizing DC for some reason. But if you're going to do that, if you're going to try and Marvelize DC and get that to work, you will need the Snyderverse. You'll need some other DC universe so the DC brand doesn't go down and shit, and then you can't produce no movies at all, when it comes to DC. So you want to have those other universes running, because if they make money, the Batman apparently made money, right? The Snyderverse, we know, made money, right? And it was going to break $1 billion, but y'all fucked that up with Justice League. So it is what it is. A follow-up to that, even though y'all marvelized it, was Aquaman. That actually made $1 billion. But it didn't make $1 billion because of the style that it was done in, because everybody considers Aquaman now a piece of shit. It's because the Snyder fans supported it, as well as, and we clearly see that now, because when we see the sequel is nowhere near as successful as the first movie, which means people who were supposed to go see that movie didn't go see it. And the people who went and supported the first movie didn't support the second. So it tells you a lot. You see, it speaks volumes. The data's right there. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. I'm out of here. It's 4:37. I need to get there before 5.